How y'all doing, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 3 4 key game picks. Before we get into Week 3, Week number 2. Thoughts from Week number 2. There's a lot that went on in Week number 2. But one thing I will probably just keep in mind, I'm pretty sure a lot of us know, the theme from Week number 2 was really injuries. Obviously, Week number 2, one of the biggest injuries that occurred during the whole weekend slate of NFL games in Week number 2 was really Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow injuring his toe. He's going to need surgery, and he's going to be out for what they say 3 months. Well, really, 3 months is the NFL season. So you could kind of say he could be out for the rest of the regular season, unless if the Bengals find some way to make the playoffs. Who knows if he could be back for the playoffs? I'm just going to take it as more of a more logical way to answer that. Joe Burrow's done for the season. And now that the Browns have to go to Browning as their quarterback now. Now, from what I know, that the Bengals did sign another quarterback. I forgot the name because I'm barely getting information in as I do this video, because information comes so quick and it's very hard to really bring about everything whenever the time I record videos, because anything could happen within the span of the recording and towards probably 2-3 days from beyond. So yeah, the injuries really have piled up. Burrow's one of them. Brock Purdy didn't play as well. Matthew Stafford was still dealing with some back issues, but he played. And Khalil Mack got hurt. That hurts the Chargers defensively. But really, I gotta wonder with the slide of injuries that are occurring right now. I'm starting to wonder now about player safety. I used to be a critic about that. But when I think about it now it's really starting to make sense. You have to remember, the NFL really is more of an entertainment industry as opposed to athletic sports. And obviously, you want your stars out there on television sets. And especially those who attend football games, you're there to see the stars. I totally get it. I understand. That's a whole separate issue, possibly, that could be for another segment, about what does the NFL do about player safety, because really it's getting more and more serious, and I don't even know if this will ever get addressed. But other than that, from teams that really showed up in Week number 2, the Lions finally getting back on track. They put up a 50 burger on the Lions, and obviously there's a little bit of some drama going on, obviously because of their former offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. And a lot of it wondering if this was really some payback and all that. I really don't know. The reality is the Bears are a terrible team. I'm not even sure what's worse, their offense or their defense, because their defense allowed 52 points. They gave up 52 points to the Lions, and that's embarrassing, to be honest. Green Bay continues to look dominant. They beat the Commanders like nothing, and you got to wonder if they now become really the team to beat in the NFC. But I really think, before anybody has that debate, remember, they do play the Eagles. They do play the defending champions this season. And that's where I want to see the fact. Can the Packers beat the Eagles? And speaking of the Eagles, they didn't look all that impressive in their Week 2 victory over the Chiefs. I think it's more about the Chiefs than it is about the Eagles, because the Eagles do have some serious issues on the offensive side. And defense-wise, their defense is still pretty decent from what they had in their Super Bowl run. But really, there's questions more on their offense. Where is their offense? They only put up 20 points. They still beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs' problems is they need everybody healthy. They need their wide receivers as Worthy and Rice, which they'll get back pretty soon. I just think that the Chiefs will get back on track once everybody's healthy, and I guarantee you that there will be a completely different team once they get their roster back at full strength. It's really, a lot of it was more predictable. The Bills dismantling the Jets. The Ravens finally getting back on track. They beat the crap out of the Browns. And speaking of injuries, I forgot to mention J.J. McCarthy was another one that got hurt against the Falcons on that Sunday night game. And then what happened to the Texans? They really did not look like a good team on Monday night. Well, the Buccaneers, to be fair, they didn't play all that impressive either. Baker Mayfield nearly got a serious injury on that final drive, but they managed to win on a last-second touchdown. So yeah, it was quite a bit of a mixed bag in Week number 2, to be honest with you. But really, it's still a long way to go. There's still a long way to go in the regular season, and we will know probably by the halfway point of the regular season where everybody stands in the NFL. All right, let's get into week 3. All right, the schedule really, a lot of games look to be predictable, but these 4 games I feel probably should get the most attention, but I don't know. You be the judge. All right, let's begin with key game number 1, and we're going to start in the AFC South. It is the Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the only reason I'm going to talk about this game is because the Texans are desperate. They need a victory badly right now, and I really mean badly, because knowing the fact that the AFC South has completely changed for the time being, because the Colts are currently in first place. Now, C.J. Stroud was 13 of 24, 207 yards, 1 touchdown. No, luckily he didn't get an interception, but obviously they still had some fumbles in that game, and obviously some turnover on downs that really killed them offensively. Now, the Jaguars, after having a lead against the Bengals, they lost on a last-second touchdown. Trevor Lawrence was 24-42, 271 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The Jaguars even got bigger problems of their own right now, and look, they're able to score points, but their defense, where is their defense? Their defense was horrible in that game against the Bengals. That game went back and forth. It was a good football game because the Bengals their defense is just as bad as theirs. But really, Jacksonville's defense is not as good as I thought it was. There's a lot of question marks on both sides for both these two teams. And obviously, the Texans are more desperate for a win as much as the Jaguars are because they're 0-2. In this divisional game, I would think, the Jacksonville clearly is the favorite by 1.5, and they should be. But I'm going to go the other way. I think the Texans finally get their first win here because they know full well that they go 0-3, their season might be over. I know there's some issues offensively. I know Nico Collins has really been their only good receiver that they have, but really they need to establish a running game. That's really the problem this team has. And I really think, given that that Jacksonville's defense really struggled with the Bengals, I think to me the Texans will find a way to get a victory because they are desperate for a win. And the Jaguars aren't that good, to be honest. They got into a shootout with the Bengals, and if the Texans find a way to get things back on track offensively, I'm going to go with the Texans at plus 1.5. I think they get the first victory of the season. They're desperate because they know they should be a much better football team than what their record should be right now. But they're not. But I really think they get the victory here. They will finally get back on track. It's going to be a very close game. I guarantee it. It'll definitely be low scoring because I figured both defenses are bad, and I think a lot of 3-and-outs are probably going to happen in this game. I think the Texans barely beat the Jaguars in a very close game here. I'm going to pick the Texans over the Jaguars at plus 1.5. All right, key game number 2. It's the Rams versus the Eagles. The Eagles are a 3.5-point favorite, and I wouldn't be surprised if that number goes down to 3, maybe 2.5. The last time these two teams met was in the divisional round of last year, and it was a good football game, and the Rams almost beat them. Now, Matthew Stafford in a victory over the Titans was 23 of 33, 298 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he was intercepted once. Jalen Hurts, 15 of 22, 101 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. Now, that's huge. But their offense has really struggled a lot. And I mean a lot. Oh, I should scratch that. Jalen Hurts did get one touch. I think they got a touchdown from touch. I don't remember. I think that was. I don't know. You could quote me on that one. The Rams defense, despite having a lot of trouble with Cam Ward a bit, I mean, they managed to hold the Titans to only 16 points. They have a young defense. And if they could find a ways to neutralize possibly more of the passing game, because I really think the Rams still are struggling with the run. And this is where into a point where Saquon Barkley can expose the problems in the second and problems with the Rams with the run. Philly's defense is going to have to find a way to hold Nacua at bay because he's been the go-to guy. And obviously, you know, the reason why the Rams having Davante Adams helps a lot. I mean, he did play a big factor in that win against the Titans last week. He's going to be another threat to them, to the Eagles defense. I think this game's going to be closer than people will think. But I'm going to go with the Eagles here because I just think that the running game is going to really affect the Rams defensively because the Rams are still struggling with the run. And I really think that Barkley's going to be the key in this game. Jalen Hurts might not have to do much in terms of the passing, but I just think Saquon Barkley is going to be the key in this game for the Eagles to win this one. And I'm going to pick the Eagles at -3.5 here. They win in a very close game. This game should be a good one at the Link in Philadelphia. But I think the Eagles will pull it out here. They'll win probably on a field goal or maybe by 4 or 5 points in this one here. So I'm going to pick the Eagles here. I think they'll beat the Rams. It's going to be a very tight game in this one here. I'm going to go with the Eagles here at -3.5. Key game number 3, a big one in the AFC West. It is the Broncos versus the Chargers. The Chargers are a 2.5-point favorite, and I would not be surprised if that number goes down to 2, even maybe 1.5. Bo Nix, 22 of 30, 206 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception in a heartbreaking loss last week. Well, a lot of it was due to a stupid penalty that the Broncos special teams got into, which really killed them. They should have won that game. But there are some question marks with that offense, though. I know they have some key weapons there, but I'm starting to wonder more about their defense, though. Because the Broncos supposedly have a good defense, but yet they still lost this game. And worst of all, you lose to Daniel Jones, of all people. Now, Justin Herbert was 19 of 27, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a big victory over the Raiders on last Monday. The Chargers have become a slightly different team, but they really have struggled with the Broncos a lot. Now, they were lucky to win their last game at SoFi, which involved that free kick. The Chargers do play the Broncos well at home. I will say that. I think this will be more of a some sort of home field advantage because, look, in reality, as a Charger fan, I will admit, we really don't have much of a home field advantage. I have to admit that. But the Chargers do play well at home against the Broncos. It's really more they struggle more in Denver than they do at SoFi against the Broncos. With the Chargers having Justin Herbert has been playing very well, and the key factor here, he hasn't thrown an interception in the last 2 games. This game is going to be close. Denver's out for blood because of what happened against the Colts. But I still think the Chargers are going to win this game, probably more or less by a field goal. The key thing here, Justin Herbert's got a little bit more to work with in terms of wide receivers. And they're still struggling with the run a bit, but if they can get the run going against this Bronco defense, look, I'm going to be honest here. I thought the Broncos defense looked to be much better this season, but for some reason they've struggled. And they really struggled against Daniel Jones and that is really telling me something here. The Chargers could smell some sort of vulnerabilities here. I think the Chargers win on a field goal here. I'm going to pick the Chargers to win. It's going to be close. It's going to be a very close game. It's going to be definitely low scoring. I can see this happening, being a low scoring game. I think the Chargers will pull it out by a field goal. I'm going to pick the Chargers here at -2.5 to beat the Broncos. And finally, key game number 4, it's the Monday night game between the Lions versus the Ravens. The Ravens are a 4.5-point favorite, and I would say that's about right. Jared Goff was 23 of 28, 334 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was huge. Lamar Jackson was 19 of 29, 225 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. Despite the Lions putting up a 50-burger on the Bears, that's because the Bears' defense is bad. You're facing a Ravens defense here that played much better than they did against the Bills. And the one thing that the Lions going to have to really counter is Derrick Henry. The Lions have a good offense. I could see this game going back and forth, to be honest with you. If the Lions find some vulnerabilities, as the Bills did in that comeback win in Week 1, this will definitely be a shootout. For sure. It is going to... Look, despite the Ravens being a 4.5-point favorite, this game's a toss-up, to be honest here. Because both offenses can explode at any time. I really think this will be a more offensive affair as opposed to defense. Both these teams are almost as evenly matched as you can get. The Lions have two good running attacks, of course, of Sonic and Knuckles, Montgomery, and Gibbs. And the Ravens have in terms of it's really Derrick Henry that's really going to be the key in this one here. This is a tough pick here. It's a very, very tough pick. I could go back and forth in this one here. It's tough to say who wins this football game here. But I'm going to go with the Ravens here. I think, to me, the Lions are going to have a hard time stopping Henry. The Bills did. They struggled. The Browns got embarrassed last week. And I think, to me, the key for the Ravens is really going to be Henry. And I think that's going to make it's going to be a close game. But I can see the Ravens winning this game by a field goal. It should be a good one Monday night. But I'm going to go with the Ravens here at -4.5. This game could go either way. I'm going to pick the Ravens to beat the Lions. All right, everybody. That wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 4. Check the description below for all of my week 4 picks. My week 3 picks, I should say. Sorry about that. It's week 3. Sorry. Until then, I'll talk to you guys when I make my picks for week number 4. All right. I'm done. I'll see you guys all next week.